Oh, they'd never fix Vaush's fucking what's it called? They have not fixed his fucking audio issues. Like, Lauren Boebert is fucking brain damaged. She can be as dumb as she wants and lose her seat, and I'll be happy. But if AOC loses her seat, all her bravery in the world means nothing. Are you aware of who Brianna Joy Gray is and or the Twitch streamer Vaush? I know Vaush. You know Vaush. That's good. That's good. So, Vaush showed up on Brianna Joy Gray's Bad Faith podcast last week. I guess they did like a 3-hour interview. I guess they did like a 3-hour interview. We watched the first part last week on Thursday. Part 2 dropped today, and as I promised, we're gonna take a look on how that went, and I suspect it's kind of a shit show, but yeah, let's find out, shall we? Let's take a look. Let's see how this one went.
I have not obsessed over anything in my life as much as Jimmy is obsessed over FTV. I couldn't remember my own name with the clarity and precision that he has brought.
Oh, they'd never fix Vaush's fucking what's it called? They have not fixed his fucking audio issues.
That I initially did not care that much about that.
Okay, I'm gonna turn this down just a little bit.
That's a little unfair, Vaush, because I've heard you say,
okay,
I've heard you criticize the strategy as
yep,
not effective, not smart strategy.
Wait, I just thought, wait, are we not getting an intro? I was like prepping for an intro. Okay, we're like, okay, they're going like right into it. I'm sorry. I thought there was, okay.
I've heard you criticize the strategy.
Okay.
As not effective,
right.
Not smart strategy.
Let me, in case you're not aware, Force the Vote was a congressional strategy to basically hold up the House Speaker vote in 2000 and God, was it 20 or 21? I think it was 2021 because it would have been earlier. So in 2021, there was a proposal. There was basically a strategic proposal from online left commentators to progressive Congress members to hold up Nancy Pelosi's speakership vote to get to either get committee assignments or they kind of said nebulously concessions. One of the key ones being a floor vote on Medicare for all. The purpose of this was to basically reveal through an open vote who were real supporters of Medicare for all and who were unserious supporters of Medicare for all. Most likely everybody in the House Progressive Caucus would have voted for the Medicare for all vote, but there are also people who are suspected to be not actually as progressive as they say. So the idea behind Force the Vote was to expose those people, to basically reveal targets for primaries and also galvanize the American public, since during this time we were still dealing with COVID-19 and kind of having a conversation about our national response to a medical crisis. That was the idea. What it ended up turning into was a strategy that everyone kind of fought on the left about and got really ugly, and overall I think created a lot more infighting and division amongst the left instead of amounting to any real substantive material gain. So that's my take there at the end, but that's generally what they what's it called? That's generally how that's what they're going to be discussing.
Strategy in ways that are completely undermined by what we saw.
Got a clickbait.
Just to be clear to everyone, just so everyone remembers, Force the Vote isn't like a ideology or
something. Shit.
It's a strategy, not a very good one at that, but even leaving that aside, that literally only could have been a thing 2 years ago. They were wrong to begin with.
Should I go up here? Okay, we'll go up here for now.
A lot of their statements. The specific Force the Vote movement was one of the most blatant grifts that got passed as left-leaning activism in the past several years. There was literally no history in which anyone but Nancy Pelosi became the Speaker of the House. There was no avenue for any other.
And I think that part of why some of us are frustrated and continue the conversation.
Why is? Oh wait, I know.
Is because there's
There we go.
absolutely no acknowledgement.
Why is that never
of how
feeling?
many lies are being spread? Oh, Kevin McCarthy can become Speaker of the House. Oh, it won't work unless you have an alternative speaker in question. You know, you can't make X, Y, and Z kind of asks. These kind of asks are inappropriate, but they wouldn't suggest alternative asks that I think I and a lot of other people would have been down for.
Wait. Okay. We're gonna go over because these are the specific pushbacks which they always say aren't correct. Let me go through these.
Asks are inappropriate, but they wouldn't. McCarthy can be. I think that part of the conversation perhaps longer than you would like.
There we go.
Is because there's absolutely no acknowledgement of how many lies are being spread. Oh, Kevin McCarthy can become Speaker of the House.
That could happen. The same way that absolutely is a thing that could happen. Is it likely? Not really, but it can happen. The same way the current leader, the Democrats, could have become Speaker of the House for the minority party in the most recent fight.
The House. Oh, it won't work unless you have an alternative speaker in question. You know,
I watch a few.
You can't make X, Y, and Z kind of asks. These kind of asks are inappropriate, but they wouldn't suggest alternative asks that I think
some are better than others. Yes.
I and a lot of other people would have been down for. So, I mean, do you see now, post what the Republicans have done, do you think do you agree that it was a legitimate plan and one that the left probably should have engaged in 2 years ago?
I think it would have been fine to do from the get-go. I do think there's a difference in how the right and the
I
left
do watch a lot of
handle
political
these situations.
streamers.
The right does not care about its
My big three are
rights.
probably like Vaush,
The louder
Sanderhall, and
or obnoxious
Keffels.
you
Those are
as a
probably my big
conservative
three right now.
politician, the more your voters love it. They
I
don't
watch
care.
Haas's clips
Whereas,
more than I
of course,
watch like
you know, if AOC
his streams. He
so
just
much
streams at an
wrong,
inconvenient time for me.
You know, over Nancy Pelosi, you're going to get like a 68-hour
That's good.
MSNBC, you know, a runtime on how disrespectful she's being.
Bisky, it's good that you're. I appreciate people who like pay attention to politics. It always seems kind of like I meet people every day, like in regular life, that are like, ugh, it's like such a pain in the ass to keep up with this stuff, or ugh, it always feels so like such like a waste of time, or ugh, it's just so contentious. But like this stuff is important. It's like how your country gets run. Like these are important stuff. I know they don't feel important all the time. They feel very petty, but like it's important stuff.
But didn't that happen to the Republicans?
It's good that you engage.
Was not on board with this project. There's a more ideological diversity over there, but the media was against them.
Though the media was, the institution of the GOP was, but I feel like the populists on the right, I say populists here very loosely, they're not really populists, they're just more openly fascist. You know, I feel like they're usually
seriously. What was that? Come on, Brianna. Come on now. We're not gonna do this thing where we disagree that populist right is not just diet fascism. Fascism zero.
I think the point is that the people on the left would have rallied behind a just claim by people like AOC or other progressives. You got to pick the ask right. You got to make sure it's not this self-interested stuff, and that they're fighting for things that are very popular in the public, including among conservatives, things like $15 minimum wage and healthcare and yada yada yada.
I think there could have been good asks there. The main efficacy point that I made that really bugged me was when people were saying the FTV could have been used to do like a roll call vote on Medicare for all that everyone knows wouldn't have passed and would have been nothing more than an empty virtue signal.
If you don't like that ask,
but if it's committee appointments, then you know.
If you don't like that ask, you don't have to like that ask. But also, these aren't mutually exclusive. So
whoa. Also, let's be really clear. If you paid attention back then, Jimmy Dore made it a point to make the Medicare for all aspect of that the ask. So she's going to come in here and say like, oh, maybe that's not the ask that like is the best one, but like maybe here's some alternatives. That's not what they were arguing back then. The largest like the loudest side that asked that like the largest like sub faction in this faction. Oh my God, there's something in front of me and it's bothering me. I think it's just fluff. It's just fluff. Anyway, but the largest and the loudest faction was arguing for a floor vote on Medicare for all. Jimmy Dore did some like rally and saying that AOC was and the squad are standing in the way of Americans getting health care and all the rest of this stuff. So she can't come on here and say that like, oh, well, you know, if it's not that one, what if we went with a different one? It's like, no, that was the one that you guys were arguing for. That was the one that you were planting your flag in. You can't run back now and be like, oh, well, you know, it's that one, or we could do a different one. We were open. Like, no, you guys weren't open to a lot of these other suggestions. They just weren't. The momentum was behind a floor vote for Medicare for all, which would have never worked. Like, it would have never passed. And because it had no chance of passing, you were never going to reveal fake supporters. So it was useless. It was absolutely useless in that case. But it's the one that gained the most momentum. It was the ask that people like Jimmy Dore and others were pushing the hardest for. And it's the one that we had to have a discussion over. Now we're talking about, well, it could have been other things, but that didn't come up until after the fact. Until after, in which the strategy was already done, Pelosi was in. Did they then start talking about, well, what if it was like this other thing or this other thing? Why can't we talk about other things that we could have gotten? It's like, because that's not what you were asking for at the time. You were asking for a floor vote. That's what you were asking for.
Let them do their roll call vote. Also demand committee appointments. You could demand the earth, the wind, and the sky. It doesn't matter, because until those 4 women or whomever in the squad vote for Nancy Pelosi, her ass wasn't becoming Speaker of the House, and that was an incredible amount of power to squander.
It does matter, because if they're too obnoxious, it ends up being an optical loss. But yes, I agree they could have.
That is true.
No, but the point that we were making, though, is that even though there was an optical loss on the right, no, this is important. Even though Fox News was not on board with this, the Republican Party wasn't on board with this, the people, conservatives, loved this. And you said that the conservative voter loves rabble rouser more than Democratic voter. I don't think that that's true. I think that there would be a lot of excitement.
That's a fundamental misunderstanding of the voting blocks.
Someone actually fighting for you in Congress. Why do I believe that? Because that's the entire repeal of Bernie Sanders in 2016.
Did Bernie win? Like, I fucking love Bernie Sanders. He didn't win. Democratic voters don't like rabble rousing. They just don't. Leftists in the Democratic Party do, but normie Democratic voters don't like infighting and don't like rabble rousing. They just don't.
Voted for Biden, the least rabble rousing human.
Yeah, for the reasons that you just described. You know perfectly well why they voted for Biden.
Because Democrats are cocked, because they're small-brained bitch baby liberals who wouldn't get out of bed each morning if they weren't told to the previous day by MSNBC.
Who else were they supposed to vote for? Vaush? Bernie dropped out and immediately endorsed Biden, so Biden was the candidate.
Biden was the person that they sort of cajoled behind institutional support for in the primaries.
So who were they supposed to rabble rouse behind? Well, there was nobody. That's my point. There's never anybody to rabble rouse.
But that's my point. In the
squad
primaries,
won't do it. Democrats don't do it.
In the 2016 primaries, Donald Trump came in
It's not the moment. It's just not the moment.
And then he screamed and shouted and insulted people all the way up to the top. Republicans love that stuff.
Holy shit, Vaush's fucking audio is fucking trash.
Theater sports to them. I respect it, frankly. It's better than what we have. Unfortunately, the average conservative is stronger emotionally than the average liberal when it comes to their propensity for watching politicians duke it out. So I genuinely think
that's the claim that I'm disagreeing with right there.
Really? You think liberals are better at that?
I think that there is an appetite for seeing people within the Democratic Party fight for the interests of working people among Democrats, just like there is
not in the party infrastructure.
However, you never get to see it tested, and it's never really encouraged, because the Democratic Party, you saw this with the force the vote moment last week. The Democratic Party prides itself on solidarity behind people as evil as Hakeem Jeffries, who spent
that's who I was thinking of,
trying to pass law. Not like laws, but rules within the Democratic Party that would keep progressives out of office.
Yeah, they don't care. They don't care. Democratic voters would vote for that because they're like, Hakeem Jeffries, he's black. Yes, let's do it. Like, they don't give a shit. I'm sorry, but normie Democratic voters don't like politics. They're not interested in politics. Only when it's somebody like Trump or in like a under Republican administrations do normies wake the fuck up. That's the only time it ever happens.
And Terry Sewell in a super PAC to try to keep more progressives from getting into Congress, blacklisting vendors who had the audacity to set up lights for or cater a progressive candidate trying to get into Congress.
Give a shit. He's civil. He's got a smile.
Exactly. And despite him doing all of that, all the people that he's attacked for the last 2 to 4 years or whenever this progressive thing started in 2018, clapped
15
cheered him on as an amazing poet as he did that corny acrostic.
Yep. Oh God, that was fucking cringe.
How much they were all in line behind Hakeem Jeffries.
Does she know how popular Nancy Pelosi is in her district? She is unbeatable in her district. Like, let's remember this. As much as we don't like Nancy Pelosi. Unbeatable in her district.
And to me, that's the most dangerous thing. As a leftist right now, that is the exact kind of solidarity that I feel like is our job to be breaking up and attacking. And I don't think it causes Republicans to win by asking the left to fight as hard as the right is going to fight.
If it doesn't in any way assist the Republicans, then I support it. I will say I have some trepidation. No. I swear to God, my issue was mostly with how it was handled. Principally, the idea of extracting concessions or at least arguing over committee appointments, I'm okay with. The problem that I have is that there are a lot of people on the social media space who have very cynically used it as a flux point to attack the squad and define their entire identity by being the left, but not like that. And then they go on and spend like their entire lives, therefore, being the left who's anti this. No. We know
I don't disagree. I just have to say that I disagree, but go ahead. I don't think that's a fair criticism, but go ahead.
Okay, well, it's a tendency that many have claimed has happened. Anyway, I have
Brianna Joy Gray to this day makes force the vote content. To this day, she is still making force the vote content. And there's no reason to. See, this is the thing. There's no reason to still be engaging in the force the vote rhetoric, strategy, argument, any of it. There's no reason to be engaging with it. In 2023, there just isn't. There's no material outcome that you can extract from it, or material gain, I should say. So what are we talking about? You're only doing it to differentiate yourself from other people, which means it becomes now not a strategy for a political movement. It becomes a strategy for individual political actors. That's what it becomes after that point.
I have an issue with how it's been used. I don't think the squad's perfect. I think they've made plenty of mistakes. I mean, God, that AOC, I don't know what kind of toenail screwing Pelosi was doing behind the scenes. That vote in the Iron Dome shit. You remember that? Yeah.
I just did a radar on it, in fact.
Yeah,
I mean, I know that people only want to talk about my radars that they find to be fascistic or whatever, but I spend most of my time advocating for things like Medicare for all and wealth taxes and calling out. I said, in that radar, I explained that AOC could have taken that moment and come forward and exposed whatever arm twisting is going on behind the scenes, whatever kind of corporate regressive, pernicious pressure that people like
and
Nancy
there
Pelosi
goes her committee
are wielding
seats
behind the scenes. Instead, she continues to tacitly, I'm not saying it's evil in her heart, but she is in effect covering for Nancy Pelosi and the establishment when she does her bidding without simply outing what made her cry on the House floor that day.
No, I agree, especially because she's in such a safe district. You know, they would have to twist some major strings to have even a chance of getting her not reelected.
I disagree with this. I disagree with Vaush in this regard, in the sense that they already yeeted, who was it? Fucking, not Jeffries. They already yeeted like one member of the House Progressive, of one of like the squad members, as it was, by redistricting New York. You don't think they wouldn't do that to AOC? Like, as much of a fundraiser as she is, and as good as she is for the party, they don't want her in the party, meaning they'll nuke her if they have to. They're fine with doing that. I think while she is in a safe district in terms of being in a safe like blue district, she'll win a general at any point. In terms of a primary, she does have to be careful that she doesn't get redistricted outside of where she actually has been running in. She does have to worry about that. And also, you figure you also have to always weigh, like, if you do that, if you reveal any of this information, if you come out and do like here's what's really happening on Capitol Hill, here's how Pelosi really does things behind the curtain, you risk losing your ability to participate positively in government for how long? How long is she going to bench you, not give you committee seats, put you in committees where you're useless? So, I mean, these are the things you got to weigh. I don't really think it's a black or white answer. And I don't think Brianna Joy Gray in this case is really fair and always making it into, you could have done like this, but you decided to run. It's like, no, it's Like what are you gonna do? Have no effect? They try to use this. There was like a quote from AOC, I think, once where it was like, "I'd rather be a one-term congressperson trying to make the most amount of an impact than be there." That was always, that itself was a dumb opinion. I want AOC to be in Congress for the rest of my and her life as long as she can, because at the end of the day, she is a representative of my progressive values. Like, if she doesn't always get to perform those values to their maximalist point, but isn't around for a year and flames out, I'll take that. Slow, steady growth is the way you build movements. It's unfun, it's not sexy, but it's the way you build this stuff. Not with like these quick one and done, here and gone little spurts of momentum.
I'm sure you saw the AOC clip on her Instagram the other day after the whole force the vote Republican thing, where she says she's criticizing Marjorie Taylor Greene, saying Marjorie Taylor Greene was in a she's criticizing Lauren Boebert, saying Lauren Boebert was in almost lost her seat. And somehow, so like that is why it's good for me not to have done force the vote. But it's like, no, it's the opposite. Marjorie Taylor Greene almost lost her seat and was still willing to go up against the Republican establishment for dumb stuff, to be clear, but was still willing to take on that risk when you're in a safe seat and aren't willing to stick your neck out for anything. I mean, that's the whole problem. Go ahead.
The main point that I'll front here.
Wait, but like, being brave for something stupid is not as good as being brave for something smart. Like, Lauren Boebert is fucking brain damaged. She can be as dumb as she wants and lose her seat, and I'll be happy. But if AOC loses her seat, all her bravery in the world means nothing, because she now has no ability to affect change, to affect real world material change now or in the future. Like,
and something I'm really interested in seeing is what would happen if you had a lefty, or at least a populist, in the Democratic Party who was openly antagonistic to the machinations within the party.
That's what we want to see.
Bernie Sanders was a real nice guy. I love him. AOC, the rest of the squad, they're clearly keeping quiet to an extent. I'm sure, now this is just standard politics, right? Like, every political party to some extent has to twist people's arms behind the scenes. That's literally the point of a political party. It makes sense. But obviously, this is going beyond like standard, like grouping people together, and it's gone into more extensive, like ideological constraints. Mm-hmm. I would love to see what would happen, like what media cycle would come about from AOC just, I don't know, waking up at the wrong side of the bed and going, okay, fuck it, sure, fine. I'll go on Insta. We'll talk about this the whole day.
I don't think very well, personally.
I'd be happy to see that. My current belief is that the average Democrat is a bitch baby who would respond poorly to any kind of disruption within the
We're just not in the moment. We're not at the moment.
By the left.
But I think that's true.
If that was challenged, if it was improved, if I could believe there was a positive outcome, because that's what I'm in it for. The left can try at whatever they want, but if at the end of the day it doesn't do anything, I just don't care. If it turns out something good can come of it, or if it opens up a road to something good in the future, then I might be a little bit more.
Isn't it hard? Isn't there something kind of in the aggregate self-defeating? Isn't there something very limiting about saying, I'm only supportive of taking that kind of a political risk if I can guarantee that there's a positive outcome? Look, I completely get wanting to calculate.
Yeah, it's having a materialist worldview. At the very least, from a political standpoint, it's like, yes, I want good things to happen when I like when I swing the bat, I want to hit the ball. Like, okay.
That there's a likelihood maybe of a positive outcome. But this is, I think, where people like Jimmy Dore, I'm sorry, are coming from. I didn't say it. Jimmy didn't say it. AOC said that she'd rather be a one-term congressperson than
fucking stupid.
Abandon her ideals and stop fighting for the things that she thought was so important. AOC positioned herself as someone, and Kyle Kalinske says this all the time. He's there. He's part of the Justice Democrat effort, that Brave New, whatever, that got them all elected. So if he says the point of why we fought for them to get into Congress was for them to do exactly that. So for them to not then be doing that, honestly, they should be doing that regardless of whether or not there's a positive outcome. I mean, they should obviously be trying for a positive outcome, not just randomly throwing rocks.
It would help if they'd give it a shot,
Right, but like, and this is so again. I don't necessarily. I don't necessarily obviously take the.
You're calling me a cuck again.
How am I doing that?
No, I was just because like you're not willing to take a risk. I do get it, by the way. I'd be much more open to experimentation if I wasn't so concerned about the I don't know, the death camps or whatever.
So, but okay, so
but broadly, I agree that it's.
I mean, yeah, that's the like recognizing the political moment you're in. This is like if we were in a timeline where, like Trump was like this utter ineffectual garbage president, whatever you think of him, he was popular. But if we were staring at an utterly unpopular Republican Party that had almost no chance, essentially no functional chance at winning a presidential election, along with like federal Senate elections, we could absolutely be more aggressive. But it's just not the moment that we're in. Like, it sucks. I don't like that we're not in that moment, but like no amount of me wanting that is going to make it like a thing, like exist. Sadly, we are in a moment where for now there's not a lot that we can do to like to have positive outcomes from this kind of aggression towards the party. There's a reason why Bernie's strategy has been to infiltrate the party and slowly kind of mold it in his vision. That's, I think, the more feasible and more workable way to do this, as opposed to, boarding the ship and taking it by force. We're in a moment where if you're in the middle of, if it's gonna be like, if you're in the middle of like a ship battle, you're in a ship battle. There's it's like another ship. It's like, I don't know, yards away, I guess. I don't know, meters, whatever. It's some distance away. You're firing off rockets. They've got all their little rockets ready to go. They're firing off their shit. And you as a small faction are trying to, galvanize the other members of the ship and be like, come on guys, we need to board the ship. We need to overthrow the captain right now. We need to go in a different direction. They're going to look at you and go, idiot. What we need right now is to fucking beat the ship over there. That ship needs to be gone. We can talk about how we run this ship after that ship isn't trying to destroy us. That's a very reductive, but simply put, the moment that we're in right now, we're just not at that point right now. And it sucks. It utterly sucks. But we can't just ignore that because it's inconvenient.
You need to experiment to some extent because there's no safe way forward.
This is what is so frustrating. I feel like I'll just speak for myself and not other members of my side of the left. I feel like I have gone out of my way
of the left,
who was, especially 2 years ago, very timid in this space, not someone who has a long history in politics, willing to defer to the opinions of a lot of other people. I've spent 2 years having union organizers and journalists and elected officials and historians and novelists and musicians and old people, young people, everyone in the world on my show trying to vet these ideas. I'm not someone who's just like, oh, I think I know the right thing to do. I have instincts. I have good, what I think are above average analytical skills, but I don't know the right answers to things. But after talking to person after person after person, it's what it seems to me to be the problem is that there's a crisis on the left where nobody is willing to do anything unless it's a guaranteed success for some of the reasons that you articulated. So I have gone out of my way, I believe, to try to focus on opportunities that would not cost the broad left anything. That's why Force the Vote was so crucial. Because whereas sometimes you hear liberals arguing, you hear Democrats arguing, well, and AOC argued this in her little clip recently. Sorry, that was patronizing. AOC argued this in her clip recently. I'm sorry. I don't mean to. I'm sorry. She said, you know, Republicans, it's easy for them to hold stuff up because they don't want to get anything done anyway.
Which is true.
Democrats want the legislation to pass, so we can't force it. You know, we can't hold folks hostage in the same way.
When you have nothing to lose, it's a lot easier to bet everything.
I'm the one who would abolish the FBI, so I would burn it. I would take the risk and burn it out. But even if you're not me, and I respect that most people aren't, force the vote. The only negative thing that was on the line, the only downside, was that some broad named Nancy Pelosi doesn't get to be Speaker of the House. There were no children who weren't going to get their welfare checks. You know, no one was going to go hungry. Nobody was going to be evicted.
Well, you would deal a blow to the Democratic concept of a functional Medicare for all effort. Like you would literally end up, like, the vote would come down to like a tsunami, a wave of no votes against yes votes, even in the Democratic Party, right? And because of that, you would characterize Medicare for all as not just pie in the sky, but unrealistic and not doable, right? Like you would now set the bar very, very low for yours, or very high for your own self. Because you imagine, right? You imagine they do the vote. Let's say you do the Medicare vote and it loses by, let's say 10 votes. Say 10 votes, right? You could make the argument that the Democratic Party is only 10 congressional votes. And because Congress is divvied up by population of state districts, that's a really good pulse of where the country might be, right? So you do this vote, maybe there's like 10 holdouts, right? And they all have their weak milquetoast, I just don't know, or I'm just against it, or, you know, I'm just a bitch, you know, whatever argument they want to make, whatever excuse they want to make for not voting for this thing. You could argue that the Democratic Party is 10 votes short of being ready to pass Medicare for all. That's a good thing. That looks really good. That tells the American people, especially Democratic voters who don't pay attention to politics, mind you, because they'll cover this on major news networks, that is going to tell normie Democrats that, hey, wake up. This is a thing that can happen now. You only need 10 more votes. It's 100% a thing you can do now. John Oliver probably goes on his program and tells everybody, you know, writes an email and then tells everybody to email their representative to shore up those 10 votes, right? Because, like, the amount of space, the amount of road left isn't a lot. So you get people excited, like, holy shit. Like, I was a supporter of Medicare for all, but I didn't realize everybody else is. And you got to remember, after Bernie losing, that told a lot of people that we're not ready for Bernie's politics yet. And a lot of people, you know, even who voted for Bernie, love Bernie, you know, maybe they don't pay attention to a lot of politics, but they're like, I really like that guy. He seems really cool. Everything else. But, you know, they look at it and they go, damn, I guess the party's really not ready for it. I guess it's not, you know, I'd be ready for it, but I don't think anybody else is. And I think that's more how the Democratic Party works. Now, here's the problem. Here's my argument. If they did the Medicare for all vote, we would not be 10 votes away from passing, even on the Democratic side. I think it would be a number. I don't know what the number would be, but I think it would be a number that would be too intimidating to normie voters to, reassure them that Medicare for all is something that they can safely advocate for to their representatives, to their friends. Because every Democrat, mind you, remember, almost every Democrat knows that Canada, that the UK, that Germany, France, Belgium, Spain, Japan, all of these places have socialized medicine that keeps their country functioning and their citizens healthy, or at the very least, healthier than Americans, right? They all already know this. But at the moment, there's not the, essentially, there's not a, there is no permission from Democratic voters to Democratic voters to support this any more than a certain amount. And if that number during the Medicare for All vote is too high, you are going to reinforce that now is not the time. You're going to tell people to go back in the closet for Medicare for All. Not yet. That's the risk you run. You run the risk of depowering it in a moment when we could keep it as popular as it is. If Bernie comes out tomorrow, announces a run, runs on the platform of Medicare for All, it is as popular as it was back in 2016 and as it gained in 2020. But if Bernie comes out now after Force the Vote, kind of tells people that now's not the time, is his case going to be as strong? Will the media tell everybody, hey, Bernie Sanders, he wants to do this Medicare for All thing, but everyone in the party thinks it's too expensive, and everyone in the party thinks it's not the right moment, and da-da-da-da-da, and everything else. And we're back in the same cycle. Picking your moment is critical. And I think that Force the Vote wasn't it. Specifically, the Medicare for All vote was not it. It was not. Anyway. That's my spiel. That's my take.
It was just Nancy Pelosi, one of the richest women in America, not getting to hold the gavel for the 15th year, however long she's been speaker of the House.
Do you have a problem with women in power?
When they're named Nancy Pelosi, yes, 100%. So do you see what I mean? And my same thing with the 2020 stuff. It's like, fine. You don't want to vote third party? Fine. But at very least, can we be cool? Can we try to bluff a little bit? And try to get a little something for our votes before you bend the knee for Joe Biden? Bernie dropped out in April. The election's in November. Can we wait till July before we all pledge fidelity to Biden for the rest of our lives?
Look,
Fealty, not fidelity.
We all have angles we approach this from. For me, and again, I could go on about this, but I feel like the battle for this country's longevity in terms of its democratic institutions is being lost or is lost. And it's really just a matter of time. I don't think the Democrats have the wherewithal or the lefties the strength to do anything sufficient to keep that from happening. And my hope is that whatever happens as a product of that, you'll see this reciprocal blowback against a conservative ideology that would give us the venue for broader change. So, for example, and I'm gonna not Godwin's law for once. We've seen historically a resurgence in some Latin American countries after U.S.-backed fascist dictators were finally ousted or democratically removed, right? Chile has seen a pretty dramatic leftward shift over time. Lula has, been a international hero in Brazil, albeit, one with some challenges, but we love him anyway. Even right now with Ukraine, ever since the Euromaidan in 2014, the country has moved leftward in large part because they wanted to distinguish themselves from Russia, which is a more conservative country. I think that the voters have a short memory and generally aren't that bright, which is unfortunately a product of our lacking political education. And they tend to react very reflexively to the pressures they see in their time. And my hope is that whatever happens next with the conservatives, the goal will be to milk that politically all the way home. And you use that to build a strong left base. What the Democrats didn't do in 2020, of course, was sufficiently work with the Jan 6 stuff, right? I mean, look at what Lula is doing over in Brazil. The Bolsonaristas, they invade the three houses of the federal government immediately. They are arrested. Lula goes on TV. He talks about how they are terrible.
So this is a good point in terms of strength. If you're gonna especially if you triple down, quadruple down, you weaken the right. Guess what? If you've made them irrelevant, the Democratic, somebody like Joe Biden, right, is perceived as center left, right? He's not actually. He's rather center right, if we're perfectly honest. But because of the way the Overton window works, he seems rather left compared to, somebody like DeSantis as an example. If you weaken the right to the point in which they become, at the very least, politically ineffective on a national scale. We'll say for like a presidential election, because that's kind of the tip of the spear of how you move change very quickly and very effectively, I think. You take them out of their ability to be that strong second party, you've created a power vacuum for more progressive, more socialist leaning leftists to run against somebody like Biden. If Biden doesn't have a strong right to run against, then he's got his left flank that he's going to have to worry about filling that power vacuum. But Democrats didn't seize on that and aren't good at smearing Republicans like across the pavement after they do fuck shit.
Terrorists, how they are cowards. He says the police were complicit in the insurrection attempt, which is phenomenal. And he says,
"Hey, Skeptical, how are you?"
I mean, this, I think, will really
how long is this video? I think probably gonna stay on until like 11. I think.
I mean,
I'm assuming
nothing has happened.
I'm gonna stop a few more times within this video.
Nothing has happened to anyone. Part of this is a consequence, I think, of our, highly federated system, but also I think the Democrats
they voted to increase police funding.
Right, we got more Capitol Police. There we go. God bless. We're safe forevermore. The point I'm getting at here is just
I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that.
These like critical moments, and we don't have one right now because you kind of need a central point. You need a leader or an event you can orient it around. Bernie is out at the moment.
You gotta make one, Vaush.
No, well, you gotta
make one.
You make one or you respond to an existing one, and that takes time and effort. And I support efforts to build that, but we need to be respectful of our place in history, because if we try to overplay our hand, we have to. If we overplay our hand,
what's the line between being respectful of our place in history and abdicating one's responsibility to try to make change happen?
Material outcome.
God helps those who help
material outcomes.
Or is it we're sitting around waiting for a miracle?
No, you always be active, but you have to be active in the right direction. I'm very defensively oriented at the moment.
Well, that's the
not
thing.
Mind you, by choice. I'm sorry,
but that's why force the vote is an issue, because we don't get many opportunities, and that was one. And half the left chose to
it was just okay.
That was years ago now, and I'm here today.
No, it was 10 days ago that we had a validation.
That was their force the vote,
right,
not
but
ours.
it's front of mind, and it happens again and again. I can go through a bunch of other examples. I don't want to bore people in this podcast because I just did this in the last episode, but the silence on Pramila Jayapal whipping progressives not to hold up the spring of 2021 COVID relief bill over the extraction of a $15 minimum wage out of it by Chuck Schumer.
Too abstract for the average voter, but I agree in principle. The average voter, we're talking fish IQ here. We got to rattle their little goldfish bowls. We got to shake them up,
I think that we obviously disagree about this. I think that we coddle the public. I think that we patronize the public. I think that we don't.
Americans are not good political political vessels. Quite frankly, they just don't. The amount of people who engage, I think, responsibly with politics in the U.S. is very, 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 very low.
Don't respect our voters. I think the voters know that they should deserve a $15 minimum wage. I think that they can understand the parliamentarian is a position that is not elected. They can be fired. Their advice can be ignored. And the Democratic Party chose to turn a 50-vote situation to a 60-vote situation so they wouldn't have to pass a $15 minimum wage.
20% of voting Americans at most know what the filibuster is. 5% the parliamentarian.
And whose fault is that?
Oh, no, I agree. I'm just saying, working with the environment we're in right now, it's pretty tough
to
sell them on the nuances.
But Vaush, if people never make that argument, that remains the case forever.
No, but
Republicans the Republicans have all become experts on the IRS in the last 2 weeks because Republicans decided to make it their.
But they haven't. They've just said something that's untrue. It's always easier to make people believe lies because you can always make up evidence. It's harder to convince people of actual truths because you have to actually educate them. And unfortunately, in the US, not a lot of people have time to sit and watch, videos about the makeup of the House Progressive Caucus, and not a lot of people have time to worry about the nuances of IRS hiring practices. It's just not something that people have the time, and honestly, I'll be honest with you, don't really have the care. Do you know how many people? So I work in a kitchen with a lot of people. When I tell them that I do this stream, you know what they tell me most of the time? That's really cool. I would I hardly know anything that's going on, and I hate talking about politics. It's all like such a big waste of time. That is the number one thing you will hear from normal people, unfortunately, because it's become so not even just toxic, it's become so contentious. Now, part of that is because Republicans have made it contentious by making politics, or people who care about politics, into for lack of a better term, ninnies. But we have to work with this environment, unfortunately. People like Jon Stewart, people like shows like the Daily Show, shows like John Oliver's show, I forget what it's called off the top of my head. Shows like that are the best way that you are going to educate people on complex topics, like the function of their government, and keep their attention. That is in my opinion the best possible way to do that. But unfortunately, and if you've been on YouTube, there's people who do this. There's people who do educational content. That there's people that do long form essays that are like an hour long, 2 hours long, maybe, with jokes and with some humor, but with real substantive education. But do those do incredibly well? Are those the top page of YouTube? Or is it Mr. Beast curing people of blind with a 10-minute procedure that should already have gone to people through their government? There's no reason why we should require people to fill out hey, I'm blind on their license or photo ID, when we just cure them of that. But capitalism, unfortunately. But either way, it's just not the place that we're in. I would love if everyone was as interested in politics as me, but unfortunately, most of the time, I end up running into the one guy in a group of friends at the bar who's like, oh yeah, I love talking about this stuff, and I love those conversations, but that's one guy out of a group of 7 of us. So
issue.
Again, the political education
going on about politics, Jukiholic. What are you going on about?
Main issue. God's honest truth. I don't give a damn about all the bad politics. Whatever.
Did you call me Buster? Are you my dad? Are you my dad? Dad, did you make an account?
I expected him to be bad. I don't really care. He's been marginally better than I expected, which was bad. Great.
Dad called me Buster.
The main thing that
I haven't heard that one in a long time.
Is that the Democratic Party is voiceless, utterly silent. Every moment of every day, if you, as a Republican voter, want to hear what the news is on your party, or what thing you should be angry about, or which minority group you think is ruining America, you can go on
which color M&M
is ruining
Fucking
America.
Christ, yeah.
Which color M&M is grooming your children into being transgender. You can go on any number of sites, talk to any number of people, or any number of politicians, and they are keeping you up to date. For Democrats, this isn't the case. AOC does better than most with the Insta feed stuff. Sure. But even that's the bar, right?
She doesn't have a production house.
It's virtually silent.
She's literally doing a selfie thing in her living room.
Voice, like we had back with Bernie for a long time.
Sure.
He's just too old now, But that's what I mean about.
Love Bernie, but yeah, he is.
It's not about being passive or anything.
He is a bit of an oldie.
I feel like we're in a really rough position right now.
So I agree, but I just want to. I know this seems like such a small point, Vaush, but when I just said the thing about a $15 minimum wage, fighting over that,
Vaush was talking
of the Build Back Better bill or whatever. Mm-hmm. Your instinct was to say, okay, but the voters aren't going to understand it anyway.
The specifics of that situation
wait a
are a bit.
I don't
the
even.
voters aren't going to understand it anyway.
I don't even think it's like a they can't
that's the
understand. It's
politician's
that
job is to
they're
make
not
them understand
interested.
it and to
They're just not
bring these kinds of
interested.
things up regularly enough so they get to understand them. And you seem to agree with that. But in effect, I would just put to you humbly, I would put to you that the effect of constantly pivoting to, well, no one's going to do it. Like, it comes off as an excuse for why people shouldn't act. And over again, I've noticed on the left that there is this energy that says, well, things aren't going to work, or things are going to be hard, or the first time we try this, it's not going to work. So we shouldn't do it anyway. That ultimately serves to absolve the few kind of progressive people we
Bernie
have
did
in
run
Congress
twice. I don't.
of doing anything at all. And I think has the effect of stymieing movement energy.
Okay, I don't disagree with that.
Hey, YouTube, thanks for watching. Just a reminder that this is a
Oh man, now I need to know what the actual response to that was. But I guess that's gonna be. I don't actually know when the next one's coming out. Let's see. Should probably let it go because it's past the point of its usage. Part 2, cool. Is there gonna be a? Yeah, how is obsessing over forced the vote throughout the pandemic at the time when millions of no, stop it. I'm not reading this comment section. Okay. Anyway. Look, when it comes to force the vote, this is the thing. It's past the point of it being useful. It's past the point of it being a interesting what's the word? Debate at this point. So I'll just move on. Next time there's another opportunity to force the vote, then if it's actually the right moment, then you do that. But until then, there's really no reason to be continually hammering this one home at this point. But anyway, okay, let's see. Am I out of water? No. Am I out of water again? I am kind of out of water again. You know the thing that they tell, like at the end of all YouTube videos where they tell you to like click on one of these like things to watch more videos. Yeah, I've been meaning to film one of those. So that's what I was doing. I was just setting it up to film one.